All right. Good morning, everyone. So this is the last topic for the semester. Um, Peripheral topic lang to, same as yung dive physiology and aviation, space, and high altitude na diniscuss ko last week. Nonetheless, I will be, our Dr. Valerio tasked me to get 10 questions for this topic and then 6 questions doon sa um, topic ko last week, which was high altitude uh, space aviation and deep space physiology. So I will give 16 questions all in all sa finals exam. Anyway, pag nakinig naman kayo or nung nag-exam kayo nung last time sa unit, sa shiftings ninyo, uh, basically ganun lang naman yung mga tanong ko. Tsaka kung ano lang naman yung discuss ko, yun lang naman yung lalabas sa exam. So, this topic is all about sports physiology. All right. So, these are the overview or the objectives of the discussion. So, we will talk about exercise, skeletal muscle performance, basic energy sources. We will discuss or we will touch a little bit on training. And then we will correlate respiratory physiology in exercise, the cardiovascular system in exercise, and the generation of body. We'll also touch on fluids and electrolytes, the gastrointestinal activity during exercise, the renal physiology, and endocrine system as well. Then we will discuss about growth, weight control, and exercise. A little bit of performance-enhancing drugs in athletes and how it affects them, and the effects of healthy lifestyle. So overview muna tayo, no? As you all know, exercise is the pushing the human body to its physical limits, no? And it involves stressing human bodily mechanisms, which we will further discuss. And then physical activity is used to maintain or improve one's function and performance. This is the 10 facets of fitness according to the National Association of Sports Medicine. So you have your cardiovascular and respiratory endurance, stamina, strength, flexibility, power, speed, coordination, agility, balance, and accuracy. And at the core of it, physical activity is expenditure of energy as a result of muscular work. So when measured in terms of strength per square centimeter of cross-sectional area, the female muscle can basically achieve almost exactly the same maximal force of contraction as that of the male muscle. It's between 3 to 4 kilograms per centimeter squared of muscle maximal force of contraction, fiber per fiber. No? Therefore, most of the difference in the total muscle performance lies in the extra percentage of the male body that is muscle, which is caused partly by endocrine differences, which we will discuss later. So testosterone is secreted by the male testes, and in some ways sa females through the pituitary sa adrenal cortex, no. So testosterone secreted mainly by the male testes has a powerful anabolic effect, and it has an effect in greatly in causing increased deposition of protein everywhere in the body, but especially in the muscles as far as males are concerned. No. Estrogen, on the other hand, a major hormone in females, no, increases the deposition of fat in the females, especially in the breast, hips, and subcutaneous tissue. At least partly for this reason, the average non-athletic male has about athletic female has about 27% body fat composition, in contrast to the non-athletic male who only has 15%. That is because of the action of testosterone, which mostly in estrogen, mostly in the females. I'm sorry. So now we move on to muscles. So sabi nga natin kanina, muscle performance, fiber per fiber, regardless kung male or female, can achieve exactly the same strength. No? That's 3 to 4 kilograms per centimeter squared. Nagkakaiba lang sila nagkakaiba lang sa density ng muscle fibers ng males, no? Kasi mas madami because of testosterone. In terms of physics, muscle performance is determined by work, that's force times distance, and it's also computed for as power, no? Which is work over time. So combining all the muscles in the skeletal muscles in the body, the power of the total of those skeletal muscles during the first 8 to 10 seconds can generate 7,000 kilograms per meter per minute of force. And then as you can see in this table, as you move through the time aspect of that force generation, it wanes over time, generating only 4,000 in the next minute and then 1,700 in the next 30 minutes. The one that counteracts contractile strength, which is the force I mentioned about kanina, is holding strength. No, that's the force that attempts to stretch the contracted muscle. And it's 40% greater than the contractile strength. And it sets you up for a risk of injury if you don't account for it when you do muscular work. So yung contractile strength is yung force ng muscle mo to overcome that particular weight or overcome that particular force that prevents you from lifting a particular object. And then the holding strength is the weight of the mass of the object and the gravitational forces at work attempting to stretch that muscle and counteract your contractile strength. So this is contractile strength and muscular and holding strength at work. As you can see, as I try to lift the 305-pound barbell, no, as I generate contractile strength to lift it and to do a squat clean, the holding strength, which means the mass of the object, and the gravitational forces applied on that mass to generate weight, attempts to stretch my muscle, no, and if my contractile strength is not powerful enough to counteract it, I'm at risk, or the consequences could be muscle injury. Clear so far? Kita niyo yung video?
Yes po.
Okay. So another measure of muscle performance is endurance. Endurance, to a great extent, depends on the nutritive support for the muscle more than anything else. So it depends on the amount of glycogen that has been stored in the muscle before the period of exercise. So a person who consumes a high carbohydrate diet stores far more glycogen in the muscles than does a person who consumes either a mixed diet or a fat diet. All right. Therefore, endurance is enhanced by a high carbohydrate diet, as you can see here in this table. So when athletes run at speeds typical for the marathon, their endurance by the time can sustain the race until complete exhaustion is approximately the following. No. So efficiency for translation of muscle power. for translation of muscle power output into athletic performance is much less during rapid activity than during less rapid but sustained activity. Okay? So sa high carbohydrate diet, mas okay if you will be doing endurance sports. So we move to energy sources. All right. So our body uses energy in exercise in the form of ATP or adenosine triphosphate. No. As you all know, ATP are high energy phosphate bonds. No. And this is the energy directly used by cells. During standard condition, 1 mole of ATP can generate 7,300 calories. That's not kilocalories, that's just calories. And under optimal conditions, wherein the temperature is on point and there are certain reactant concentrations in the body or other substances that supplement the generation of ATP, it can go as high as 12,000 calories per mole. Then as you kung hindi yung stored ATP nyo ngayon, for example, you guys sitting just listening to the lecture, when you generate maximum muscle power or when you use all your muscles to for example, biglang may nagbato sa inyo ng super bigat na object pero kaya nyo naman, no? The maximum muscle power of that stored ATP in your body can generate 3 seconds of 3 seconds of movement, no? Yung stored ATP nyo lang. But as you will all know, as we go along with this topic, there are other energy systems at play which plays a key role in sustaining energy levels during exercise and movement. So we usually train sprints sa Arcovia, that's in Pasig. No? So that's part of our speed work program during Thursdays. Pagkatapos yung final exam, you guys want to run with us, you can join us every Thursday morning. So our body reconstitutes ATP by 3 major systems, no? So we have the phosphagen energy system, which uses creatine, the glycogen lactic acid system, no? Also known as the anaerobic system, and the aerobic system, which involves the use of oxygen to sustain your energy levels. There are several uses for these systems. I will further discuss them now. So phosphocreatine, no, so phosphocreatine can decompose into creatine and a phosphate ion, no, and in doing so, it releases high amounts of energy. In fact, the high energy phosphate bond of the phosphocreatine has more energy than the bond of ATP itself. That's at 10,300 calories per mole. No? So therefore, phosphocreatine can easily provide enough energy to reconstitute the high energy bond of ATP. Furthermore, most cells have 2 to 4 times as much phosphocreatine as ATP. And then a special characteristic of energy transfer from phosphocreatine to ATP is that it occurs within a small fraction of a second. No? Therefore, all the energy stored in the muscle, phosphocreatine is almost instantaneously available for muscle contraction, just as is the energy stored as ATP in our body. Yung sinabi ko nga kanina na yung creatine stores ay yung ATP stores mo can actually be consumed in a matter of 3 seconds if you exert maximal energy or maximal work, no? But this is part of the energy system that comes into play as that particular ATP stores gets depleted. So the energy available for phosphocreatine system can sustain muscle work for 8 to 10 seconds. So another one is the glycogen lactic acid system or the anaerobic system. No? So the stored glycogen in the muscle can be split into glucose, and that glucose can be used for energy. So the initial stage of this process called glycolysis occurs without the use of oxygen, di ba? Sabi nga sa biochemistry, and is said to be anaerobic metabolism. So during glycolysis, each glucose molecule is split into 2 pyruvic acid molecules, and energy is released to form around 4 ATP molecules for each original glucose molecule. No. Ordinarily, the pyruvic acid enters the mitochondria of muscle cells and reacts with oxygen to form still many more ATP, di ba? Sa Krebs cycle. However, when there is insufficient oxygen for the second stage, which is the oxidative stage of carbohydrate metab, no, most of the pyruvic acid is then converted to lactic acid, which then diffuses out of the muscle cells into the interstitial fluid and blood. No, so lactic acid being the byproduct of anaerobic metabolism. So in glycogen lactic acid system, ATP is formed 2.5 times faster than the oxidative capacity of the mitochondria, and it can be used as a rapid source of energy. ATP is available for short to moderate periods of muscle activity, and it can power you through about 1.3 to 1.6 minutes of maximum muscle activity if we will only rely on the glycogen lactic acid system. Of course, by the byproduct being lactic acid, no, accumulation of lactic acid can decrease the muscle power, no, because lactic acid, as we all know, is a proton carrier of hydrogen, and when there is hydrogen accumulation in the muscles, no, the pH level of your muscles, the pH environment of your muscles goes down, and this sets up the muscle for, of course, decreased sensitivity of calcium, no, para to decreased sensitivity of calcium causes decrease in the contractile force of the muscle. Alam niyo naman na yun sa muscle physiology. So we have 2 systems na, phosphocreatine or phosphagen system. We have the glycogen lactic acid system or anaerobic metabolism. Now we move to aerobic system. So the aerobic system is the oxidation of foodstuffs in the mitochondria to provide energy. That is, as you can see on this slide or table on the left, no. Ito rin yung table kanina without the time aspect, no. Glucose, fatty acids, amino acids from foodstuffs after some immediate processing combined with oxygen to release tremendous amounts of ATP or of energy that are used to convert to AMP, that is used to convert AMP and ADP into ATP, no. So sabi nga natin kanina, in patients with or in athletes with high carbohydrate diet, no, they can sustain a longer amount of work as compared to mixed diet or a fat diet. Then the figure on the right shows the approximate relative usage of carbohydrates and fat for energy during prolonged exhaustive exercise under 3 dietary conditions. So we have high carbohydrate mixed diet and high fat diet. Note that most energy is derived from carbohydrates during the first few seconds or minutes of the exercise. But at the time of exhaustion, as much as 60 to 85% of that energy is being derived from fats rather than carbohydrates. Clear so far? May questions? May questions, guys? Hindi ko kayo makita lahat, ha? So, kung wala yung questions, thumbs up, react na lang. So we can move on. All right. So, as we integrate these systems, in the context of exercise physiology, so we compare this anaerobic system of energy supply with glycogen lactic acid system and phosphagen system. So the relative maximal rates of power of generation in terms of ATP production is on this table. No? So sa phosphagen system, sabi natin, it can generate 4 moles of ATP per minute. It can power you through 8 to 10 seconds. Glycogen lactic acid system, around 2.5 moles of ATP and can power you from 1.3 to 1.6 minutes. And then aerobic system generate 1 mole of ATP per minute, but it is unlimited as long as there's nutritive support sa body. So as long as there is enough nutrients to sustain that particular activity, unlimited yung source ng aerobic system, or unlimited yung amount of time that you can go about your physical activity when you use aerobic system, as long as the nutrients last. Therefore, one can easily see that the phosphagen system is used by the muscles for power surges of a few seconds, and the aerobic system is required for prolonged athletic activity. No? So this table, to further explain or to further correlate the energy systems involved in exercise, no? So this table shows the relative energy distribution in relation to time. As you can see at the initial phase of the physical activity leading up to the second minute, you will see that your anaerobic system, including your phosphagen energy system, has a relatively high contribution of energy. But as you move along the 10th minute mark here, leading up to marathon distances or sports that require long distances over long periods of time, you will see that the relative contribution of your anaerobic metabolism, of your aerobic metabolism increases. So the initial parts of your exercise or exercises requiring high amounts of power for short periods of time, the anaerobic system and the phosphagen energy system has a high relative contribution of energy. But as you move through longer hours of physical activity or sports requiring you to put in longer times in order for you to perform them, then your aerobic metabolism kicks in, and at that particular point, it gives a high relative contribution of energy. Malinaw so far? No questions?
None po.
Okay. So, kanina, sabi nga natin, no, if you could look at this table, your stored ATP can, the stored ATP in your body right now, once you utilize all of the stored ATP, can power all of your muscles for around 3 seconds lang, no? But as you can see in this table, No, as that stored ATP gets depleted, then your phosphocreatine starts to kick in order for you to sustain the physical activity. So sabi nga natin kanina, the phosphocreatine system can power you through around 8 to 10 seconds, or for this particular table, around up to a maximum of 15 seconds. Then as that particular phosphocreatine system gets depleted, as you can see here, the glycolysis or the anaerobic system ramps up in order for your body to get the energy needed, no, to power you through that particular exercise or activity. And then as the anaerobic system plateaus, so it can regenerate ATP. As you can see here, the aerobic system kicks in naman to sustain you for longer periods of time. Sabi nga natin kanina, the aerobic system can generate unlimited amounts of ATP for unlimited amount of time as long as the nutrients last in your body. All right? So malinaw yung energy systems in yung integrate na natin lahat ng energy systems involved, di ba? But as you can see right here, no, as you go about using all of the energy systems in your body, the exercise performance or the work output that you will be getting as a result, no, wanes or decreases depending on the energy system that you will be using. So sabi nga natin kanina, using phosphocreatine and the stored ATP, no, it can provide you maximal performance, no. Pero as you use your anaerobic and aerobic system, although you can sustain the activity for longer periods of time, mas mababa yung effort in exercise na pwede nyong i-provide as opposed to using the stored ATP and phosphocreatine system lang. Malinaw so far? Malinaw yung table na to?
Yes po.
All right. And then these are the different sports that uses certain energy systems in the body. So we've utilized your energy sources, or we've utilized all of the energy systems in your body. Now we move on to recovery. So sa recovery, your phosphocreatine system regenerates ATP as well as in your anaerobic system and the aerobic system. So in recovery, no, when it comes to lactic acid, so again, lactic acid is a byproduct of anaerobic metabolism. It causes fatigue, as I explained kanina, no? It causes muscle fatigue because lactic acid is a proton carrier for hydrogen, no? And if there's hydrogen accumulation in your muscles, it lowers down the pH of your muscles, setting you up for muscle fatigue. The fate of lactic acid can either be reconverted to pyruvate to undergo oxidative metabolism if there is enough oxygen, and it can be converted to glucose then glycogen in the liver. This is in Palarong Med back in 2010. Ito yung mga teammates ko. Si Dr. J.R. Yang, if nakita nyo siya sa FEU, sa general surgery siya. Yung ibang teammates namin kasi nag-practice sa ibang bansa. And ito yung kapatid niya. Ito yung kapatid ni JR. So, recovery of glycogen stores is crucial during the recovery phase of the exercise. All right. We will also discuss post-exercise oxygen consumption, no? Or EPOC. And part of that discussion is about we'll also discuss O2 depth, No? So extra oxygen must be repaid during recovery. No? And that amounts to about 11.5 liters of oxygen. So bakit ba nagkakaroon ng oxygen debt? No? Your body contains 2 liters of oxygen at any given time. So you have around 500 ml in the lungs, 250 ml as dissolved oxygen in body fluids, 1 liter of oxygen in the hemoglobin, and around 300 ml in myoglobin. No? During maximal effort, no? Sabi nga natin around 11.5 liters of O2 ang nai-incur natin na oxygen depth. So, kung meron tayong 2 liters sa body natin at any given time, meron pang 9 liters of oxygen needed for aerobic metabolism during recovery to reconstitute the phosphagen and glycogen lactic acid system and for them to create ATP again. No? As you can see here, can you see this table? So, kung nakikita nyo, no, at rest, and then that person performs exercise, no, there is a particular lag in the aerobic system, as you can see right here, no, as the person's exercise intensity increases, there's a certain lag in the aerobic system, no, as shown by the straight line as the person intersects the column of intensity of exercise. That lag has to be fulfilled. That lag has to be fulfilled or has to be compensated for by anaerobic energy or anaerobic metabolism. And that particular compensation incurs O2 deficit. All right. So as the person increases the intensity of the exercise, no, that O2 deficit that the person incurs to maintain the increase in intensity and to be compensated for by anaerobic energy incurs an oxygen debt. And as soon as the person stops exercising, yung utang na yon has to be paid for by the body, no? So nagkakaroon ng exercise post-oxygen consumption. All right? And exercise post-oxygen consumption has a rapid component and a slow component, as seen here in this table. Malinaw? Malinaw kung bakit nagkakaroon tayo ng O2 depth or kung bakit nagkakautang yung body natin ng oxygen. Thumbs up, react na lang if malinaw. All right. So, oxygen depth has a rapid and a slow phase, no? And another term for the rapid phase is the alactic O2 depth. No? So there is recovery of the phosphagen system and depleted O2 stores, and that's around 1 to 2 minutes, or that's in ideal conditions. No? So depends sa exercise, but it's about 1 to 2 minutes. And then there's the lactic acid oxygen depth or the slow phase. It is the removal of lactic acid. It dissipates heat, restore electrolytes, thyroxine, catecholamine levels, and regeneration of glycogen. And that particular slow phase can last from minutes up to hours. Na-discuss na natin to kanina, no? Lactic acid, decreased pH, decreased calcium sensitivity, decreased actin-myosin bonding. No? Aside from the lactic acid, the inorganic phosphate, no, further decrease the pH in the body, or the pH environment in the muscles, which further aggravates the problem. And your inorganic phosphate is the byproduct of course, your dissociation of ATP bonds. So muscle fatigue, alam natin yan, decreased muscle force even though the ATP pool is not greatly reduced. No? It's a defense mechanism of the body to protect itself from muscle cell injury or death. Nonetheless, it is good to know that when there is decreased muscle force, because this is a defense mechanism of the body, rest assured your motor function or your motor system function is not impaired. It is just the way of the body to defend itself from further muscle cell injury or death caused by uh, the accumulation of waste products of energy metabolism. So this figure shows the recovery process under three conditions. First, in people who consume high carbohydrate diet. Third, on people who consume fat and protein diet. And in between that, no, there's a green line, the person who does not consume any food at all. Note that the person who consumes a high carbohydrate diet, full recovery occurs in a matter of days, no, around 2 days. Conversely, people who consume high fat diet or high protein diet or no food at all show very little recovery even after as long as 5 days. No? So, ang takeaway nitong table na to, no, it is important for athletes to consume high carbohydrate diet uh, before and after a grueling athletic event. And of course, athletes should not participate in exhaustive exercise during the first 48 hours preceding that event, no? In order for our body to recover properly as far as our energy systems are concerned. Like kong ina-emphasize tong table na to, nakita nyo na to kanina, no? High carbohydrate mixed and high fat diet. So, lalabas exam yan. Any questions so far? We will move to training na.
None po, Doc.
Okay, so one of the cardinal principles of muscle development during athletic training is the following. No? So muscles that function under no load, even if they are exercised for hours on end, increase very little as far as strength is concerned, as you can see by the green line right here. At the other extreme, muscles that contract at more than 50% maximal force of contraction will develop strength rapidly, even if the contractions are performed only a few times each day. No? So using this principle, experiments on muscle building have shown that 6 nearly maximal muscle contraction performed in 3 sets a week give approximately optimal increase in muscle strength without producing chronic muscle fatigue, as you can see in this table and as I have bulleted here on the left side of this of the slide show. So along with the increase in strength is an approximately equal percentage increase in muscle mass. And this is called muscle hypertrophy. So alam niyo na to, fast twitch, slow twitch muscles. Hindi ko na discuss yan. I'm pretty sure alam niyo naman yan. And baka ba sa exam. So muscular hypertrophy is influenced by your genetics and the influence of your endogenous testosterone in the body. Muscle hypertrophy is defined as a 30 to 60% increase in muscle size. And that correlates to increased diameter of muscle fibers, increased number of myofibrils, 120% increase in the efficiency of mitochondrial enzymes, 60 to 80% increased efficiency in the phosphagen system, 50% increase efficiency in glycogen storage, and 75 to 100% increase efficiency in utilizing your triacylglyceride as energy source. Clear so far?
Yes po.
Okay, alam niyo na to. Kahit nakapikit kayo or kahit without thinking, pag sinabi ko, which uses phosphagen and glycogen lactic acid system, which muscles? So alam niyo na. You can answer it even without thinking. Make sure you tandaan niyo yung fast twitch and slow twitch muscles. So from this point on, we will be integrating physiologic systems na in exercise. So we will start first with respiration. So as you can see, this figure shows the relation between oxygen consumption and total pulmonary ventilation at different levels of exercise. As would be expected, there is a linear relation. Both oxygen consumption and total pulmonary ventilation increase to about 20-fold between the resting state and the maximal intensity of exercise in the well-trained athletes. And these are the relative O2 consumptions in ml per minute of different persons at different levels of activity. So at rest, we only utilize around 250 ml of oxygen per minute. Untrained person under maximal condition, 3,600. A recreational athlete at around 4,000. And then an elite marathon runner who's running a marathon can consume as much as 5,100 liters of O2 or ml of O2 per minute. So in respiration exercise, we also talk about the correlation between maximum breathing capacity and the pulmonary ventilation at maximal exercise. So as you can see right here in this table, the maximal breathing capacity is about 50% greater than the actual pulmonary ventilation during maximal exercise. This difference provides an element of safety for athletes that can give them extra ventilation that can be called in on such conditions. For example, the athlete was exercising in high altitudes, or that athlete is exercising in very, very hot conditions. Or for example, if the athlete suddenly has abnormalities in the respiratory system. So in respiration, in exercise, we also talk about the VO2 max. VO2 max is the abbreviation for the rate of oxygen usage under maximal aerobic metabolism, or the ability for the cardiorespiratory system to drive oxygen to the muscles. Tandaan nyo yun kasi baka lumabas yung definition na yun sa exam. So this figure shows the progressive effect of athletic training on VO2 max recorded in a group of subjects, beginning at a level of no training, and then while pursuing a training program for about 7 to 13 weeks. As you can see here, the VO2 max of the person in athletic training peaks around the 7th week, and then it plateaus, or it relatively plateaus, pero nag-increase pa rin up to 14 weeks. Sinong sports science major dito? Walang sports science major or physical therapist?
Ako, physical therapist po.
Okay. Dr. Sabala, do you still use mesocycles or have you tried doing physical therapy or exercise programming sa mga athletes? Hindi pa.
Before po, pero matagal na.
Mm. Hindi ako sports science major, no? Pero I've been an athlete for most of my life kasi, and what the physical therapist and sports science practitioners do is they formulate our training program in mesocycles. And kaya yung weeks of training dito in increasing VO2 max, one mesocycle is about 14 to 16 weeks kasi. If we don't account the tapering or the 2 weeks taper, that's around 14 weeks lang. And nowadays, if you use a fitness tracker, may mga fitness tracker na super comprehensive. It can actually give you your VO2 max na, no, if you constantly use them for your physical activity. So it computes your VO2 max for you na. So this figure shows the oxygen diffusing capacity, no? So oxygen diffusing capacity is a measure of rate at which the oxygen can diffuse from the pulmonary alveoli into the blood, no? So this capacity is expressed in terms of milliliters of oxygen that will diffuse each minute for each milliliter of mercury difference between the alveolar partial pressure of oxygen and the pulmonary blood oxygen pressure. So pag mas malaki yung discrepancy ng difference in pressure, mas malakas yung oxygen diffusing capacity ng body. Ito yung may kinalaman sa Bohr and Haldane effect as far as the affinity of oxygen to the hemoglobin and its perfusion capabilities to oxygenate muscles that are low in oxygen. So hindi ko na di-discuss further yung Bohr and Haldane effect. I'm pretty sure alam niyo. Pero yun yung ginagamit na concept in the O2 diffusing capacity. So in exercise, there is increase in oxygen diffusing capacity because there is increased ventilation and there is increased perfusion. And in the tissues, no, since there is decreased O2 utilization, no, from the oxygenated blood to the deoxygenated tissue, ang laki ng discrepancy ng pressure. So what happens is oxygen is in normal conditions, no, oxygen is further driven from the arterial side of your blood to deoxygenate your muscles that needs oxygen in order for them to utilize it again. So yung O2 diffusing capacity further increases, no, as you utilize more and more oxygen because of that increased oxygen pressure gradient. Malinaw so far?
Yes, Doc.
Okay. So this demonstrates the another important point, no. Blood gases do not always have to become abnormal for respiration to be stimulated in exercise. Tandaan niyo tong slide na to. Instead, respiration is mainly by neurogenic mechanisms, no. Your cortical radiation and the muscle and joint movement. So part of this stimulation results from direct stimulation of the respiratory center by the same nervous signals that are transmitted from the brain to the muscles to cause the exercise. All right. Also, your ventilation is further stimulated by, of course, the accumulation of carbon dioxide, no, in terms of baroreceptor reflex, no, and lactic acid. So, syempre, pag smoking, no, smoking decreases athletic performance, it decreases ventilation, and smoking causes chronic respiratory conditions, as indicated in this slide. Clear so far sa sa respiratory system in exercise? Okay, we'll move on na to cardiovascular system in exercise. So this figure shows a recording of muscle blood flow in the calf of a person for a period of 6 minutes during moderately strong intermittent contractions. Note not only the great increase in flow of about 13-fold, but also the decrease of flow. No? Kaya siya spike during each muscle contraction. So this table just explains that the actual contractile process of the muscle itself temporarily decreases muscle blood flow because the contracting skeletal muscle compresses, of course, your intramuscular blood vessels. Therefore, therefore the strong tonic muscle contractions of uh, of the muscle can cause rapid muscle fatigue because of the lack of delivery of oxygen during phases of continuous contraction. Yun lang naman yung ibig sabihin ng table na to. So, your cardiovascular system is stimulated during exercise, no? And that stimulation is caused by the activation of your sympathetic nervous system. So you increase your cardiac output, no? You increase your total peripheral resistance so as to have a laminar blood flow to the tissues or to the muscle tissues that needs that particular oxygenated blood. So there is increase in systolic pressure. Diastolic pressure remains relatively constant under ideal conditions. There is 30% increase in arterial pressure. And your active muscles, of course, as they work, no, there is increased CO2, there is increased carbon dioxide accumulation, lactic acid accumulation, and adenosine as waste products. And these waste products has a vasodilator effect, which further enhances blood flow in ideal conditions in order for that particular venous side of the blood to get pushed to the right side of the heart in order for that deoxygenated blood to get reoxygenated. And then it can go back to the arterial side of the body to supply additional O2 where the tissue needs it. So same as the respiratory system in exercise, no, there is also increased cardiac output and cardiac index as well as oxygen consumption as you exercise, no. It has the same concept as respiratory physiology in exercise, no? There's a linear correlation between the effort that your heart works as the work output during exercise increases, no? So because there is increased muscular work, there is increased O2 consumption, there is increased metabolism. Yun nga, as we explained kanina. As you can see in the table at the bottom, this is the cardiac output expressed in liters per minute in certain people. No? An untrained person at rest, untrained person at maximal exercise, and a seasoned athlete or a marathoner. As you can see, their cardiac output in liters per minute increases. So even though the heart of a physically fit person is considerably larger than that of the normal person, the resting cardiac output is almost exactly the same as that in a normal person. Tandaan nyo yun, guys. However, this normal cardiac output is achieved by a large or this normal cardiac output is actually achieved by a larger stroke volume at a reduced heart rate. Thus, the heart pumping effectiveness of each heartbeat is around 30 or 40 to 50% greater in highly trained athlete than in the untrained person. But there is a corresponding decrease in heart rate at rest. So, actually makikita nyo in well-trained athletes, yung heart rate nila sobrang baba, pero they can achieve a relatively similar cardiac output as that of a person who is not trained, pero yung cardiac output or yung heart rate niya at rest is around 70 beats per minute. Kasi when you use fitness monitors and you use them religiously, no, it can give you the a more comprehensive metrics of your cardiovascular fitness. So yung sa akin kasi gamit ko Garmin, it uses an app, no, called Garmin Connect, and as you can see here, yung resting heart rate ko is 43. No? So normally that's already bradycardia na, it's super low. Pero I can achieve the same cardiac output as that of a normal person who's probably the resting heart rate is around 60 to 80 beats per minute. So mas mataas yung stroke volume nung heart namin most of the time if you're a trained athlete. So this was me during the New Valley 50-kilometer marathon. Medyo may timba ako kasi puro training. I believe I was second year med school nito. It's around 2010. Okay, so this figure shows the approximate changes in stroke volume and heart rate as the cardiac output increases from its resting level of about 5.5 liters per minute to 30 liters per minute in certain sports. No, the stroke volume increases from 105 to 162 milliliters, an increase of about 50%, whereas the heart rate increases from 50 to 185 beats per minute, an increase of about 270%. Therefore, the heart rate increase is by far accounts for a greater proportion of the increased cardiac output than does the stroke volume during sustained strenuous exercise. Tandaan niyo yun. Kasi yung previous slide, in-explain ko the difference between an athlete at rest and a person at rest. Pero this table shows the correlation of stroke volume and heart rate in terms of exercise, no, or in terms of intense physical activity. Wherein hindi na yung stroke volume yung importante, but heart rate as far as achieving maximal cardiac output is concerned. Okay? So, pagdating sa intense exercise, it's not more of the stroke volume that comes into play kasi your stroke volume, even at maximal effort, plateaus at around 165 ml per beat. Whereas the heart rate, no, as you increase your heart rate, yung cardiac output mo, yun yung magiging basehan niya in order for the heart to pump more oxygenated blood to the systemic circulation. Malinaw so far? Kasi baka mapagpalit niyo yung concept of an athlete at rest and an athlete at maximal exercise or maximal physical activity. Malinaw so far? Okay. So this is the cardiac output of an athlete and is comparable to that of a non-athlete. So kinumbine na natin yung concept. An athlete and a normal person at rest and a non-athlete and an athlete at maximum exercise. So in relation to cardiovascular performance to VO2 max, so during maximal exercise, both the heart rate and stroke volume are increased to about 95% of their maximal levels. So because the cardiac output is equal to stroke volume times heart rate, I'm pretty sure alam niyo na yun. One finds that the cardiac output is about 90% of the maximum that the person can achieve, which is in contrast 65% of the maximum as far as pulmonary ventilation is concerned. Therefore, tandaan nyo to, one can readily see that the cardiovascular system is the normally much more limiting factor in the delivery of O2 in the muscles. So it's not your respiratory system, it's actually your cardiovascular system. Remember that. So we compute maximum heart rate. So that's the highest heart rate that a person can achieve without severe problems through exercise. If you want to compute for it, that's 220 minus age using the Haskell-Fox method, or you can use other formula. Pero sa performance athletics, we use Haskell-Fox. Or if you have a fitness tracker, it actually gives you the different zones or your maximum heart rate and the different zones of the different heart rate zones of your body. No? As you can see here, yung Garmin actually computes the relative zones of your heart rate. No. So depende sa exercise program ninyo, you can actually program different exercise routines based on the heart rate zones that you want to improve on. No? So yung zone 5 is the maximum heart rate zone, zone 4 is the threshold, zone 3 is high aerobic, zone 2 is low aerobic, and zone 1 is yung warm-up phase. Well, at least sa Garmin ecosystem. I believe Fitbit has a different way of using heart rate zones. Suunto, I think, and Coros different concept, pero basically same theory. No? Pero kung wala kayong fitness device, you can use Haskell-Fox kasi yun yung gamit namin sa performance athletics. So that's 220 minus age. All right. Any questions sa cardiovascular exercise? Cardiovascular system during exercise? Nakikinig pa lahat so far or nakatulog na or nagre-review for the Revalida? I would understand naman eh. Anyway, ako rin naman magiging proctor nyo mamaya. So, good luck dun sa magiging students ko later. So, body heat in exercise na tayo. So, of course, body heat is generated by the increased muscle work and increased metabolism that your body processes goes under as you exercise. Metabolic heat is 75 to 80% of the energy that is being dissipated in body heat, and mechanical work around 20 to 25% of energy. So much of the muscle work and increased metabolism is converted to heat. And this is to overcome the viscous resistance to movement of muscles and joints and to overcome the friction of blood flowing through your blood vessels. Body heat, to a certain extent, increases athletic performance. No? If you've warmed up, it enhances the oxygen diffusing capacity of your body, kasi as the pressure gradient or the pressure discrepancy between the oxygenated and the non-oxygenated tissue increases, your oxygen diffusing capacity increases as well. No, as long as there's equal exchange of waste products and blood-rich oxygen to your body, so it improves athletic performance. It decreases blood viscosity because body induces vasodilation, so there is decreased peripheral resistance. And yeah, there's increased diffusion rates of respiratory gases and metabolites during body. Pero it can give you a performance boost to some extent. If there are extreme environmental temperatures, there is consequently decreased athletic performance as shown by the bullets here. So increased sweating, increased fluid loss, so on and so forth. So what happens when the extreme temperatures affect your body? No? So you develop heat stroke. This is during endurance athletics under normal environmental conditions. The body temperature often rises from its normal level of 37 to 40 degrees Celsius. But with very hot and humid conditions or excess clothing, the body can easily rise in temperatures as high as 41 to 42 degrees Celsius. Nung hindi pa summer, when we're doing speed work sa umaga, no? Minsan kahit 7 o'clock na kami mag-start, okay lang. Pero sobrang init ngayon. We start as early as 5 o'clock na. Kasi pagkadating ng 6 o'clock, sobrang sakit na nung araw sa balat. And if you're not heat acclimated, no, which I will further explain later, sobrang magpapawis ka and fluid loss can actually further aggravate that heat, the tendency for you to acquire heat stroke. Okay, body fluids and electrolytes na pala tayo. Alright. Well, sa mga fitness trackers, we have what we call heat acclimatization. So it measures your heat acclimatization for your training program. So dapat mataas yung heat acclimatization nyo, especially during summer. Kasi pag hindi, it can actually affect your performance metrics when you're performing training programs under intense heat of the sun. So some fitness trackers can actually compute that for you or can detect that for you. Body fluids and electrolytes and exercise. No, so your sweat can make you lose 5 to 10 pounds. To. Na experience ko na to when I was competing in jiu-jitsu tournaments and I have to get to a certain weight tapos medyo overweight ako or kaya I'm 1 kilo heavier than the prescribed or than the weight category. So what I would do is I would jog around the venue, no, make me magpapawis ako. And then pagka step up ko dun sa weighing scale, I can make it through the catch weight. And you can lose as much as 5 to 10 pounds or at least 5 kilos through sweat alone. Pero may caveat yun. So increased sweating decreases the effective circulating blood volume in your body. And in some cases, it can actually decrease athletic performance. So you have to, when it comes to sweating, no, although it's one of a weight loss tactic, no, you have to play this right. Otherwise, your athletic performance can decrease. So with sweat loss, you get hemoconcentration. And during the onset of training, hindi pa siya makaka-apekto. But as the training continues, your body generates increased red blood cells. No, it can utilize body fat. More efficiently, and your body water actually increases because your body water is reserved in your muscles as your muscles becomes dense during training. And then exercise as part of a healthy lifestyle, no, you have decreased body fat, increased lean body mass, increased intracellular water stores sa muscles nyo, and increase in total body water if you make exercise a part of your lifestyle. So getting a lot fitter, no, decreases your risk of heat stroke because you have more stored fluids in your body. So these are the effects of negative water balance during acute and chronic dehydration. I'm pretty sure alam niyo na yan. So, as you all know, sodium, potassium, and chloride is lost through sweat and must be replaced in order for your athletic performance to not get impeded. And sweat gland acclimatization, tandaan nyo to, is aided by your hormone, which is aldosterone. Gastrointestinal activity and exercise. So mild exercise, walang effect sa gastrointestinal motility. Heavy exercise decreases stomach activity. No. But it returns naman after the strenuous exercise, albeit it will take time. So strenuous exercise after a meal can cause abdominal distress, nausea, and vomiting. That is because during strenuous exercise, your blood flow is shunted from the gastrointestinal system to the musculoskeletal system because your musculoskeletal system needs more blood in order for it to efficiently get oxygenated and to drive the waste products of metabolism out of the body. So it is prudent not to eat a heavy meal before exercise, 2 hours before exercise, and make sure that you don't eat or you don't binge out naman after exercise. Kasi it will take a while before that blood supply returns to your gastrointestinal system, and pagka kumain ka ng sobrang heavy na meal, kunyari after mo mag-CrossFit, nagsangyupsal ka agad, no? Baka hindi ka matunawan. Ganun lang naman. So mild to moderate exercise has no effect on the motility of the small intestines. Daily exercise increases the stimulation of contraction of the small intestines, and it actually sets it up for an increased efficiency in absorbing nutrients. No, so exercise has a positive effect naman in absorption of nutrients as far as this motility of small intestines is concerned. Pero sabi ko sa inyo kanina, don't eat a heavy meal before or immediately after the workout para hindi maapektuhan yung ibang parts ng gastrointestinal system nila. Kasi nga, because of blood supply shunting. Motility of large intestines, moderate to no effect. Pero kung papansin nyo, as you become fitter, your bowel movements or your bowel habits becomes more regularized when you exercise. That is due in part to the efficiency of contraction and nutrient absorption of your small intestines. No? Pagka nakuha na niya lahat ng nutrients na kailangan niya, and because of its efficiency, no, mas magiging regularized yung bowel movement once you get fitter and fitter. GIT secretions, sabi ko nga sa inyo kanina, because of blood shunting, no, there will be decrease in secretions due to the decrease in blood supply sa GIT before, during, and immediately after an intense physical activity. Effects on liver and pancreas, no effect. So moderate exercise permits normal function of digestive tract. Severe exercise may actually be counterintuitive, especially if you eat immediately a heavy meal, or if you eat a heavy meal before. No, syempre, it might limit your athletic performance. Renal activity and exercise, alam niyo yan. There is increased secretion of titratable acids because of byproducts of metabolism. Sa endocrine system, we have the process called general adaptation syndrome. This is the stage of alarm, stage of resistance, stage of exhaustion. So nangyayari sa stage of alarm? Sa stage of alarm, meron shock. That is reaction to the stimuli. So for example, you're a sedentary person getting into an intense physical activity for the first time. No? So your body goes through the shock phase, and these are the possible complications. And then as your body adapts, no, with a well-structured exercise program, you develop the counter shock process, and this increases the adaptive processes in your body. No, your body becomes more alert, no, increased capacity to withstand stress, and the efficiency of stimulation of your sympathetic nervous system. And then stage of resistance. As you develop an increase in the efficiency of your body as you go through the physical activity, you increase resistance to muscle activity stress, you increase resistance to all other stresses in your life. So, and then the activity of the adrenal cortex becomes more efficient. All right? So, palagi nga namin sinasabi sa performance athletics, exercise is a life multiplier. So, whatever you do in life, no, if you exercise, you multiply the benefits of all the positive aspects of your life, because exercise and fitness is a life multiplier. But if you don't play, or if your physical activity is not structured, or palaging intense yung physical activity ninyo na walang periods of rest, walang periods of low aerobic conditioning, you go through the stage of exhaustion. And this phase is when the exercise goes on and beyond the physiologic capacity of your body. So instead of exercise having a positive effect on your body, no, it's going to be counterproductive. So again, aldosterone is responsible for the acclimatization of your sweat glands. And I'm pretty sure sa endocrine physiology, alam niyo ito, aldosterone aids in decreased excretion of sodium chloride and increase potassium excretion in the body through the kidneys. Effects on the pituitary gland, exercise being a life multiplier, no? Exercise induces hypoglycemia, which in turn increases your growth hormone production. And growth hormone production sets your body up to have an anabolic environment. As long as the nutrients are available, no, your body can develop more muscles, and more muscles means more work produced during exercise. Your posterior pituitary gland aids in preventing dehydration through the action of your antidiuretic hormone. Any questions so far? Any concepts that you want me to clarify? Okay, if none, let's tapusin natin to. Okay, so if you've been exposed to physical activity ever since you were a kid, there are a lot of physical changes that your body can go through. No? If you're exposed to physical activities during childhood, ako kasi I started swimming when I was 4 years old. Tapos by 7 years old, I joined competitive swimming na. No? So I've been an athlete for most of my life, longer than I am being a healthcare practitioner. So your body undergoes through epigenetic changes and certain developmental changes, becomes more efficient in affecting your body. So alam niyo nutrition is very important, no? There's different computations for that. Kung may nutrition and dietetics major dito sa class, no? They actually are the ones who compute our caloric intake. And with our caloric intake, the proportions of protein, carbohydrates, and fat. No? So depende sa needs namin for that day, or depende kung gaano ka-intense yung training for that day, ganun ka-dami yung calories na tinitake in namin. Of course, with the proportionate or with the adequate value as far as protein, carbohydrates, and fat is concerned. So exercise can curb obesity. Yun lang naman. And diet is better than exercise in weight control. But of course, diet with exercise is best. Body mass index, I'm pretty sure you guys know how to measure that. But in terms of performance athletics, it's not actually a good measure of athletic performance. What we're after is body fat percentage. So the lower your body fat percentage is, no, the higher your lean body mass is, no, the more efficient, the more na mas efficient yung body nyo into exercising, and the more na mas efficient yung body nyo to use that exercise to benefit your life. All right? So there are different ways of measuring it. Most of them are really not accurate, no? Yung anthropometry depende kung gaano kagaling yung pag-iipit ng mga taba-taba ninyo. Kasi minsan pag may mga bawat person kasi there are certain points wherein you can use that anthropometric measurement to pinch yung body fat caliper to pinch that fat. So pag hindi marunong yung gumagamit, no, it can give you a high or a low value. Pero ang pinaka-accurate is dual energy X-ray absorptiometry. So sa aming mga athletes, we usually maintain a body fat percentage of less than 15%. Kasi lalo na pag tumatakbo kami, we don't need that extra weight. Kasi that would put certain stresses in your joints. May question si Dr. Manuel Rian. Doc, do you train to failure when you aim for hypertrophy? Some people do it, but some don't advise it. What's your take on it? Madami kasing aspects ng training when it comes to hypertrophy. If we're talking about hypertrophy in the realm of bodybuilding, yung mga nagko-compete tapos nagpo-pose, no? They usually train to failure, but it's structured in a way na magiging positive yung effect ng hypertrophy sa kanila. Walang sports science major dito eh. Kasi they use different facets of training regimen to induce that hypertrophy. One of which is training to failure. Pero they don't train to failure all the time. They have different training cycles that involves the muscles going through dynamic repetitions, no, yung mga high reps na below failure, no. And then there are exercise programs naman that induce hypertrophy using time under tension. So hindi naman failure yung time under tension, kasi hindi naman failure, but yung pag-lift nila, kunya pag nagbo-barbell curls sila, no, kaya naman nilang buhatin ng mabilis yun, pero babagalan nila para ma-squeeze yung muscle para mag-induce ng hypertrophy. So some people do train to failure, but it's just a part of their training program. They don't train to failure all the time. There are several facets of programming that they incorporate aside from training to failure, no, to induce muscle hypertrophy. Malinaw, Dr. Manuel? Taking creatine. Last tips po for people who are planning to weigh intake. Dami kasi bago pa magbuhat, gusto agad. Why? Magkaiba kasing substance yun. So whey protein. Whey protein is a protein supplement that is to add additional protein in your diet kung hindi mo kayang kunin yung protein requirement mo sa regular food, no. May merits yung pag-take ng whey protein, no. And as far as post-training is concerned, medyo anecdotal yung anabolic window na sinasabi nila, 1 hour after workout kailangan mag-whey protein ka. Although ako, I still follow that, no. After an intense training, I drink whey protein. That is because I don't want my body to dive into the catabolic or muscle wasting phase, no. Kasi at the efficiency level of my body, because I've been training for a very, very long time. Once I'm done with training, I usually need to get in the initial protein source kung hindi pa ako makakain kaagad ng full meal, which I get from whey protein. And since most of the time I'm following an intermittent fasting program, no, I own yung feeding window ko lang is 8 hours, no. Hindi ko makukuha lahat ng protein needs ko sa whole food, no, within that 8 hours. So I supplement with whey. So yun yung merits nung pag-intake ng whey. That's only if you don't have enough protein source from your food. Other than that, if you can get your protein requirement for that particular day using regular food, mas better. Creatine naman, creatine is, yun nga, it uses the phosphagen energy system to power you through explosive workouts. Now, creatine has its merits if you are an athlete who is into sports that requires explosive movements. All right. It does not affect your body that much in terms of sports that requires endurance, the endurance aspect of your body. No. Although if you take creatine for long periods of time, ako kasi I've been taking creatine ever since I was a teenager. Hanggang ngayon I take creatine. I use it as food supplement also. When your phosphagen energy system is efficient enough, no, taking creatine can actually get you a good bridging of energy. So mas efficient yung, nakita niyo yung table kanina, pag nade-deplete yung mga energy systems, nagra-ramp up yung mga ibang energy systems. If your phosphocreatine system is developed, no, or is properly supplemented by creatine, that that transition of energy from stored ATP to phosphagen energy system to anaerobic and aerobic metabolism, mas maganda yung pag-bridge ng energy na yon. So walang lag yung energy transition between energy systems if you take creatine religiously. So yun yung merits niya. All right. Pero be careful in taking creatine. Make sure that you don't have any renal problems because too much creatine can actually affect your kidneys. Pero mga bata pa naman kayo. And I'm pretty sure wala pa naman kayong kidney problems unless may genetic problem kayo sa kidney nyo. No? Then I suggest you not to use creatine. Kasi pag hindi nyo siya na excrete ng maayos, it can aggravate your liver, your kidney condition. So yun, we use body fat percentage as a means of in terms of performance athletics rather than your body mass index, and it gives you a more accurate picture of how obese or how fit a person is rather than body mass index. I'm pretty sure yung PT natin dito sa class concurs with me. Drugs and athletes. So when we talk about drugs, I won't touch with this topic na kasi it's a whole new panibagong discussion yan altogether. But I'm pretty sure you've heard of the androgenic steroids, no? So androgenic steroids, ang effect niya sa athlete is it sets up the environment of the body of the athlete to become positively leaning as far as the nitrogen balance is concerned. So if you have positive nitrogen balance in your body is more anabolic. So it has increased protein synthesis. No, one of the side effects of androgenic steroids is it has virilizing properties. No, so pagka mataas yung positive nitrogen balance niyo, mataas yung protein synthesis, mataas yung muscle recovery and hypertrophy, no? So you increase lean body mass. Of course, it increases in strength if you increase the density of your muscle fibers, no? Some androgenic steroids can induce bone growth. Hindi ko na sabihin kung ano kasi madaming substances yon. During my athletic career, I've seen almost all of the performance enhancing drugs that you can think of. Of course, there are side effects, meaning you increase since androgenic steroids is at its basic core is a cholesterol, no? So you increase your bad cholesterol, you decrease your good cholesterol. And the virilizing properties of some androgenic steroids can actually cause a negative effect on your endocrine system. So you can it can cause acne, sterility, or decreased virility, decreased sperm count, decreased libido, if you don't dose or you don't properly get your dosing of androgenic steroids right. And it has effects on the liver and the heart, as well as in some instances or in some androgenic steroids, it can actually affect your kidney or your brain. Performance enhancing drugs includes the use of stimulants. No, a natural stimulant for athletes such as myself is caffeine. No, so I get my before I run, before I go into a strength training program, I usually drink coffee. No, or pag magtuturo ako sa mga estudyante, I usually drink coffee kasi it keeps me up. No, and it gets my body alert and my mind. But in some instances, part of the performance enhancing drugs which is banned sa athletes is the use of amphetamines and cocaine. No, meron ding substances that induces vasodilation. No, so it drives more blood to the muscles. Kaya nga na-ban si Sharapova dati sa tennis because of that particular vasodilator. I'm pretty sure alam niyo na yung pag sinearch sa internet, makikita niyo kung bakit na-ban si Sharapova. Some UFC athletes, no, they get banned for using performance enhancing drugs such as stimulants or androgenic steroids. If you've been following CrossFit, the CrossFit scene or the CrossFit world, no, some athletes get banned for 5 years or even for life because of getting these drugs detected in their system once they get random drug testing. Nung athlete kami, we get tested every 3 months. Tapos merong surprise random drug test every month or minsan once a month. So hindi mo alam, biglang dadating yung World Anti-Doping Association sa training nyo, tapos biglang kukuha na ng laway, kukuha na ng ihi, kukuha na ng dugo. No? So if you're not smart in using these performance enhancing drugs, it can ruin an athlete's career. No? Or if you're using them and you don't know how to cycle them or you don't know how to get away with it. So fitness prolongs life. Sabi ko nga sa inyo, fitness is a life multiplier. No, it amplifies all the good things in your life because your quality of life improves if you get fitter and fitter. No, so it can decrease your risk of cardiovascular disease. No, increase resistance to physical stress, improve motor and brain activity. You generally feel well, no, as a person, and then fit people have 3 times less mortality than sedentary persons. That's it. That's my discussion on sports physiology. Any questions? Alright. Sabi ko nga kanina, I will be getting 10 questions for this topic. So kung nakinig kayo, and just get my slides over sa Moodle course, doon ko lang naman kukunin yung exam ninyo. Perfect nyo yun guys. Yun na yung tulong ko sa inyo if ever tagilid kayo sa physiology. And mag-aral kayo for the Revalida. You still have 2 hours to study. Kung sino man yung ma-handle ko, guys, when you do oral Revalida, make sure you analyze the questions. Kasi most of the questions or most of the cases doon sa Revalida, nandun na lahat yung sagot. Alright? So, when you're given a case, make sure you focus on the pertinent history and the history and physical examination doon sa case. And take note all of the pertinent laboratory findings kasi from there, you can formulate an answer based dun sa questions na itatanong namin. Huwag kayong kakabahan, hindi naman magtatanong ng something outside of the case. No, you will be given time to study, to read the case, take note of all the pertinent information, and then from there you formulate your answer. All right. Madali lang naman yung Revalida. Huwag lang kayong kakabahan kasi pag kinabahan kayo, it sets you up for failure. And oral Revalida is 5 points directly added to your grade. No? So kung tagilid ka, tapos nakuha mo yung oral Revalida, maganda yung grade mo. 5 points ka agad yun. And kung 70 ka, tapos nakuha mo yung 5 points, 75 ka, hindi pasado ka sa physio. Diba? Second year na kayo. That is if okay yung ibang grades ninyo sa ibang subject. Okay? So that's it. 10 questions for this sa finals exam, 6 questions sa dive physiology. Nakapag-lecture ba ako sa inyo ng deep sea physiology? Hindi.
Oh.
Okay, pero nabasa niyo naman yung lecture, di ba? Nabasa niyo yung slides. Kumusta yung exam niyo last time? Okay naman. Nasagutan niyo naman lahat ng questions ko. Hindi. Guys, madali lang yan. Andun naman lahat sa presentation. Tsaka I think I recorded my lecture. So, andun lang yung mga sagot. Pakinggan nyo lang yung recording. So there, good luck sa Revalida. Chill na kayo kung wala na kayo ibang subject. Huwag kayong kakabahan later. And if all this plays out well, I'll see you around kung face-to-face na as second-year medical students. Wait lang. Doc Sports Physio po yung naka-upload na lecture sa Deep Sea. Kasi pinagpalit ni Dr. Valerio. Dapat Deep Sea yung last. Deep Sea yung last topic. Pero inuna niya yung Deep Sea tapos hinuli niya yung sports. I think if you check Moodle again nandun. Kasi I recorded it eh. A lot of people are asking permissions for the annotated video. Pero shinare to all ko na yun. Check nyo na lang ulit. Anyway, kung natandaan nyo naman yung mga questions sa shifting exams niyo, parang ganun lang din yung mga questions ko. And since nakapag-sports physio ako sa inyo na direct discussion or na synchronous lecture, yung mga sinabi ko, yun lang din yung lalabas. Anything else? Alright, if none, thank you for listening, guys. Good luck sa Revalida later and I'll see you guys around. Hopefully second-year students na.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you po, Doc.
Thank you po, Doc.